Burk. Back in the good old days, you had 3 different options of watching your favorite TV shows and movies. Physical media, cable, and satellite. And if you had satellite, I am so sorry. But since the beginning of the millennium, there was this new system that was getting more and more popular called the internet. This thing allowed us to visit websites, contact friends, and more importantly, watch video content like never before. Now, to be fair, while television is great, it did have some flaws. Like really, on regular TV, you would have like 1,000 different channels. With so many options, it becomes overwhelming for the viewer to find out what they want to watch. But if you do find something good to watch, that show's probably going to be on at a specific time. But, you know, life happens and you're probably going to miss it. But with the internet, those problems could be resolved, and one company decided to take this step: Netflix. Before Netflix was a streaming platform, it was originally a service that you can rent DVDs from. But when Netflix announced they would allow streaming for movies and TV shows all the way back in 2007, that was probably one of the best decisions they ever made. Now, I'm gonna be completely honest, I'm not a huge Netflix binger, nor do I watch a ton of TV. However, I do find myself dabbling to Netflix occasionally, and from my experience, it's a really good service that made watching television a lot more convenient. With streaming, you could watch any movie and every TV show at any time. No longer did you have to rent movies or DVDs, nor did you feel obligated to finish a show as intended. However, as Netflix got more and more popular, content distributors recognized how successful the service was getting. And because of that, some corporations thought they could make more profit by making their own platforms for streaming. That way, they didn't have to share money with Netflix. So as time went on, Netflix movie library would eventually dwindle, but the original programming they offered kept the service afloat. On the other hand, many companies have come out with their own video services that you have to pay for, and now this trend is being incorporated into music and gaming now. Spotify and Apple Music are now the main ways to listen to music that you don't own, and Xbox Game Pass and PlayStation Now are making gaming a little more accessible and affordable to everybody. It's cable all over again. You thought you had too many channels, now you have too many streaming services. Sure, some have succeeded, while others have failed. And that's what I'm going to discuss today. These are the failed streaming services. Services that were either too ahead of their time or lacked enough content to be successful. So we're just going to look over a couple of streaming services that are no longer active. We'll also look at some services that are on their way to being inactive. So, this is gonna be a long half hour.
I'm talking exclusive, nobody else has them shows. Classic quote them by heart shows. And boom! $3.99 a month.
Shut up, God!
I think the key to making a successful streaming service is to reach out to as many different demographics as possible. Making your service centered to a specific audience will probably hinder you in the long run. Sure, there have been some services that thrive under this model, but others not so much. One of these services that failed to succeed was CISO, which was only active for about a year. Owned by NBC Universal, it offered most of NBC's original programming, with most of them being comedies: The Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, Parks and Recreation, and The Office. Why wouldn't anyone buy a subscription service that included The Office? I thought that was a popular show on Netflix. So, they didn't have the American Office, they had the OG British Office. Now, to be clear, I don't watch too much of The Office, I've only seen a couple of episodes of the American one, and I think it's a very funny show, but I haven't seen much of the British one. From what I've read online, the UK Office is good, it's just that the humor in that show is a lot more crude and immature. The American version looked and felt more lighthearted, and this can be seen from the 2 main protagonists. Brent is more of a pessimistic jerk, which makes his character very unlikable. Meanwhile, Scott in the US version has a more lighthearted character to him, which adapted better to the American audience. They did add the US Office eventually to CISO, but at the same time it was also on Netflix. So why would you buy a service for a program that was already on another service you probably had? They did offer other old school international comedies like Monty Python and The Kids from the Hall. All of these shows are great, but I think they just weren't marketed well to the American audience. They did have originals, however most of them were stand-up comedy specials, with some comedians like Dan Levy and Doug Stanhope. Along with the stand-up specials, they did have actual shows, but the problem with most of them was that all of them were either sketch comedies, parodies, or shows based on web content like Cyanide Happiness. Now, don't get me wrong, Cyanide Happiness is great, but I feel like making the show 10 times longer doesn't seem as attractive as the original shorts and strips. Now to note, CISO is only $4 a month, which is a reasonable price, but if you multiply that by the months the service was active, you'll only be paying under $100 from January of 2016 to November of 2017. This was no joke. With CISO obliterated, it looks like NBC has learned their mistakes with their upcoming service Peacock. The service will offer content from different genres, while also including live sports, news, movies, and content for Latino audiences. And the best part about it is that it's free! With ads.
Right away. With Netflix, you mail them back and wait. But only Blockbuster gives you the option of bringing them back to the store and exchanging them. No extra charge.
Here's your new movie, sir.
So you never have to wait.
That was fast.
Movies through the mail plus movies through the store, one low price. That's Blockbuster Total Access. Get your free trial at Blockbuster.com.
I have very vivid memories of Blockbuster when I was a kid. Renting out movies and games, getting that fattening stove popcorn. Do people really still eat that anymore? Anyways, yes, when Netflix became more and more popular, Blockbuster tried imitating its success by either replicating their business strategies or by making their service look more convenient. This included getting rid of late fees, offering to rent movies by mail, and yes, making their own streaming service. First, they partnered up with TiVo in 2010. Yes, that's a word I haven't heard in a while. Blockbuster would become a streaming service that people would use on TiVo. You could rent over 5,000 movies for $4 each, or buy them for $20 each. Only one problem. Netflix and Amazon were already available on the TiVo service, so no one really bought into this. This partnership wouldn't last long, and because of the separation, Blockbuster filed for bankruptcy, and then was bought by Dish, the satellite company. What will they do now? Make another streaming service. Blockbuster Movie Pass was launched in 2011, a year after the TiVo deal. They made 2 streaming services in just 2 years. Instead of renting movies, Blockbuster Movie Pass would require you to purchase a subscription for $10 a month, while Dish users would get it for free. During that same time, Netflix was only $7.99. Sure, this service did offer DVDs to be rented out as well as games, but with Netflix and Gamefly still supporting those services, many consumers just passed on Blockbuster. So the service shut down again, and Dish just gave up on Blockbuster becoming a Netflix competitor, and just decided to use the Blockbuster name with their on-demand service. This was the last-ditch effort in making Blockbuster a household name. This is all that's left of the Blockbuster website. However, outside of streaming, there is one Blockbuster still open in the US, the last Blockbuster in Bend, Oregon. It's privately owned, meaning it's not actually owned by Blockbuster, and it's taking the internet by storm. If I had the chance to go to the West Coast to see the last Blockbuster in person, I would. Now, you might be saying, well, what about the 49 other states that are Blockbuster-less? Well, don't fear, because there's Blockbuster, the party game. Basically how this game works is that one player has to read a quote from a certain movie, and then the other players have to guess the title of that film. It's sort of like Jeopardy in a way. So yeah, it's still good to see that Blockbuster is still going in some shape or form. Bring back Borders. Okay, you know where this is going. Apple TV Plus launched late last year, and already it feels dated. The launch library was small enough to get through the free trial and not having to pay. Now, I should know that the service is meant for more original content. However, I'm not going to ignore the fact that it costs $5 for being able to watch like 15 shows at launch. In addition, there was also another subscription service that Apple launched a little bit before they launched this one, Apple Arcade. And that had 100 plus original games at launch. It was only $5 as well. When a company creates a game subscription service that's more successful and appealing than a video streaming service, you know they screwed up hard. Now, I'm sure that as time goes on, Apple TV will get better. Apple has spent over $6 billion in original programming so far, and over 40 plus movies and TV shows are in the works. And, you know, some of them do look interesting to me, like Mythic Quest and Central Park, so I'm definitely gonna check out the service eventually when I have the time. But with most of the anticipated shows coming out later than now, I feel like the service was sold at a loss. And it boggles my mind that Apple has like 4 subscription services now. Apple News Plus, Apple Arcade, Apple Music, and Apple TV. All of this, and a $1,000 monitor stand. Disney is that one company that's always been protective about their properties. Back when physical media was still a thing, a lot of film companies began distributing their films onto video, so they don't have to keep re-releasing the same films in theaters every 5 years or so. As for Disney, they would occasionally release their animated line in very limited quantities for a very limited amount of time. After that, those films would be put back into the vault and would not be released again for years to come.
Classic musical masterpieces Fantasia and Fantasia 2000. Because on January 31st, these hits are going back into the Disney vault. Get them before...
Now, in the age of streaming, Disney has officially left that vault open with their new service, Disney+. No longer did you have to buy those expensive videotapes or have to wait every 5 to 10 years for a certain Disney flick to re-release. But what if I told you that Disney has been practicing this streaming model way before Disney+? Disney Life. This was a streaming service that launched back in 2015, only in Europe. What did this service have in comparison with Disney+? Well, the first thing to notice is the amount of films on the service, in which most of them were just limited to plain Disney. So there was no Star Wars. That's fine. No Marvel. Whatever. And no National Geographic. Alright, that just pisses me off. Get over here. No National Geographic, why the— Okay, actually, there did exist some Marvel/Star Wars content on this streaming service, but the only content those departments did offer were more animated/family-oriented shows. Therefore, there was no ability to watch the MCU films or the Skywalker saga. It did offer TV shows, but the only shows that were included were from specifically the Disney television networks, along with the ability to watch those channels live. Clearly, this was more marketed towards kids. Let it go. They did confirm that the service will rebrand as Disney Plus in March, so by the time that this video goes out, Disney Life will be no more.
Coming soon to own on video and DVD. And now, our feature presentation.
Okay, so this isn't a video streaming service, but I feel it's important to talk about since game streaming services are beginning to take off. OnLive was one of the first times cloud gaming was experimented with. So in order to play the newest games, you need the newest console to run them. However, consoles and gaming PCs are expensive. This is the Acer Predator Helios 500, and I mostly use this for like video editing and 3D modeling and all that technical stuff. But this thing is marketed as a game PC, although I don't do much gaming on here, and it costs like $1,000. What I'm trying to say is that gaming sometimes can be a luxury form of entertainment, and OnLive was supposed to be the first step to making those games more accessible to a wider audience. Basically, OnLive gave you the ability to play games from the cloud. You had the option to play these games on a PC, but a special top box was available for purchase, so you could play these games on your TV. There was a controller you had to get, that was fine, but you know what wasn't fine? The required internet speed. You needed a fast internet connection in order for these games to run smoothly. Otherwise, the quality wouldn't look good, the frame rate would get choppy, and the input lag would lengthen. I feel if this service came out today, it could have done fine. The problem was that this came out in 2011. To have the internet speeds today would have been rare back then. Because of this, a lot of consumers had technical issues with the service. In addition, you also had to buy the games on the service. So if the service were to shut down, which it did, then users would no longer have access to playing those games. Because of this, if you wanted to play those games again, you would have to buy it again on another platform. Of course, they did offer rentals and a subscription service to access certain titles, but most games available on the subscription service weren't AAA. Because of these reasons, OnLive didn't last long. It shut down in 2015, with its patents being sold to Sony. I guess the world was just not ready to stream games yet. Until now.
Unthink the things you think are things. Free your mind at the one place for all the ways we play. Stadia!
Wow. You guys maybe have
Stadia?
9 years later, and here we have a new game streaming service, Google Stadia. Compared to OnLive, Google Stadia actually felt like it had something going for it. Once again, games were offered on the cloud without having the need of updates or installations. Plus, it included the ability to play AAA games on a Google Chrome browser. meaning you didn't have to install any software on your computer to access the service. Now that the internet speeds have gotten so much better, it seemed that Stadia could have done well. But one major flaw of the service that ruined the launch was the launch itself. Most of the games that were available from day one were already available on other consoles. This included Doom, Final Fantasy XV, Tomb Raider, Red Dead Redemption, and Destiny. Destiny? You can get that game for free on other consoles. Honestly, I feel this service would have done so much better if it were to come out this holiday season. The PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X are on the way, and from what I've seen, most console launches often sell at a loss. I probably have to sell a lung in order to snag either of these Johns. The price for these consoles when they release are going to be way above my budget. In addition, some of the new hardware used in these consoles are new, meaning that they won't work as intended and could become faulty. And to top it all off, most of the games at launch are games also made available on previous generation platforms. Google would have gotten way better success with this service if they were to launch Stadia around the launch of these platforms. But honestly, with Microsoft making their own streaming service codenamed the xCloud, I still don't think Google Stadia would have had a chance. Besides, even though xCloud is still in development, it still has more games than the Stadia ever did at launch. I guess the PC master race, as annoying as they are, is still and will continue to be invincible. Okay, so to finish off this video, I'd like to talk about two different music streaming services. First is Beats Music, which launched in 2014, then shut down in 2015. In the early 2010s, Beats were a very hot item. Sure, the headphones were stupid expensive, but the company wanted to expand upon hardware into software, saying that they wanted to develop a truly end-to-end music experience. They attempted this by acquiring Mog, a pretty basic music streaming app. With Mog, they would add the Beats brand onto it, becoming Beats Music. Not only did it come with a redesign, the service was equipped with algorithms to offer music based off a person's listening history. And if that doesn't grab your attention, it had Mad Libs. Yes, Beats Music had this very interesting way of searching songs, where the program gives you a scenario with blank spaces, and the user could choose any subject to fill those blanks. After that, the service would give results back depending on what subjects the user decided to write in. For example, the sentence is, "I am very blank," and I put in the word lonely. And then I get recommended American football, darn it. But moving from that, everything was doing well until Apple acquired Beats for $3 billion. With this acquisition, Apple will rebrand the service as Apple Music. It still kept some of the design philosophies of Beats Music, however some of the more exclusive features were pulled from the service. The second service I would like to talk about is Napster, which is owned by Rhapsody. Wait, isn't Rhapsody an app too? Well, yes, Rhapsody was a music streaming service until it was transformed into a company and wanted to acquire Napster, a piece of music streaming software that caused a lot of legal trouble back in the day.
Computer consultant Jim Margolis of Green Acres says Napster is the most popular clearinghouse for music swapping, with an estimated 50 million users. He outlines the Napster argument.
When you connect, you're downloading music from another Napster user's machine, and the software, the programs, the music never resides on Napster's equipment. Napster really isn't responsible for the copying or the distribution. They're just providing the channel.
You fix that problem and new technologies over here to take over. That's why there has to be an overall philosophical and legal understanding about, well, then how does an artist get paid for what they do?
It eventually shut down, but Rhapsody bought the Napster name and reformed it as a competitor to Spotify and Pandora. So with the new Napster, you can't share songs with other users, but for $5 a month, you can listen to your favorite songs with no ads. However, you couldn't download the music with this option. You do have this option in the Premier plan, where you can download all the songs you want and hear what your family members are listening to. Don't worry, Mom, it's just a phase. The user interface for Napster isn't the best. It's not as clean or as modern as Spotify or Apple Music, and some of the categories aren't even as emphasized as the others. But I do want the credit for actually having a good organization of certain charts. Napster does allow you to look at charts for most listened to album, artist, or song based on the genre of music. My go-to service for music is Spotify, and the only charts they show off in the app are the top 50 in the country or in the world. It's cool that on Napster that I can see the charts for each category or genre, rather than having it being just one huge list. I click on rap, the best rap song on the charts right now is The Box. If I click on the rock genre, the top song right now in rock is Hotel California. This is great. but that's the only good thing I can really say about this service. It was last reported that the service had 3.5 million subscribers, but compare that to the other services out there and you can definitely see that this is gonna shut down eventually. So, why do I bring these two services up? While the battle between different video streaming services have been chaotic, the battle between different music services has been non-existent, and I kinda know the reason why. With sites like Netflix, what makes their service sellable is their exclusive programming. With music, it's a whole different story. No service has exclusive music, although the Spotify singles is an exception. Though most of those songs on that collection are covers. But when it comes to actual music, services like Spotify won't come to artists for profit. The artist comes to them. Artists would rather have their music played on as many services as they need to get to the top charts. So most of the time, artists tend to put their music on pretty much every service they can, and that is why there's little competition when it comes to music. You can't make music exclusive to one platform. Otherwise, it's inevitable for people to just pirate it, causing artists to make less profit than they would if they were to sell it to every service out there. That's why we have services like Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, and that's it. You either take the blue pill or the red pill, or you pay $129 per track. And those are the failed streaming services. I don't think there's gonna be many streaming platforms being launched after HBO Max and Peacock, but with every television/film distributor having their own streaming service, I feel that there's more of a need to make more original content now. Aside from Netflix, a lot of these new services rely on existing content. While this may be a novelty for some, having old content as a selling point for your platform is not always going to win everybody over. This is why not everyone was exactly hooked with services like CISO and Stadia, because they didn't offer anything original. Even with successful services like Disney Plus suffered this issue, with most of the more anticipated shows coming out later than now. Now, I'm not saying that these services are ripping people off for redistributing old content. I myself would definitely purchase subscriptions for shows that I could watch over and over again, and it shows with others. I'm just saying that there exists this imbalance of content in which you have so much of one thing but very little of the other. So, to simply put it, make stuff! Jeez. austinMULLIN speaking, how can I help you?
Yeah, this is the bank company. We're trying to tell you that your balance is currently at $0.
What?